There's this ongoing tension that we have as Christians, if you've been a Christian for a while, is what authority does Jesus have on your life? The answer to this question is based on what I have found is what you believe about Jesus. What we think about God will shape the way that we live our lives, whether we believe it or not. See, the disciples are no different in this story that we're going to read today. See, they have all these different groups that are just trying to have influence on their life and authority on their life. You have different groups like the group that follows the law. They have another thing called the Mishnah. They have the tradition of the elders. They have the Roman rulers that have kind of laid waste to their property and all of their possessions, being taxed up to 70% of everything. And on top of that, you have the Jewish leaders. And now the disciples have this new guy named Jesus who has come around for the past 3 years, and he's been trying to break down these barriers to try to convince them not to believe in the traditions that they've been doing, but to follow him instead. And we see over and over and over again that the disciples become very confused and frustrated, and their traditions or just their way of life really continues to interrupt the ministry of Jesus. And what they're struggling with, the basically overarching theme of what we can see is what they're struggling with is just who has authority in their life. Who are they supposed to listen to? This is one of those mystery stories that people have read for generations. We feel like we don't overly understand it, and we think it's cool. Jesus did something cool here. God talked once again, and we kind of like to skip over it. But I'd like to tell you that this is one of those scriptures that is a heaven on earth experience that doesn't just point to a certain situation, but it points to the past, and it connects to a future moment which aligns with the Bible and points all the way to eternity. Jesus takes 3 of his disciples up to a mountaintop. But when Jesus and the guys get up to the mountaintop, it says that Jesus was transfigured. It says that Jesus was transformed, and it showed his glory, and it showed his holiness. The scripture says that his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. But they aren't the only ones up there. It isn't just Moses and these 3 disciples. We also see that 2 other people show up. We see that Moses and Elijah just appear up there as well. And this is a very, very important part of the story when it comes to authority, because Moses is this super important person in the Old Testament. You hear his name mentioned all the time. The law of Moses, the law of Moses. Moses brought the law down. We need to listen to Moses. We need to follow what Moses says. This is very, very important. Moses was the authority of the law. Elijah was a prophet. And basically what a prophet did was he listened to God, and then he delivered whatever God said to the people. They were the authority of what God was saying in that moment. You have Moses on one side, who's the authority of the law. And on the other side, you have the authority of what God says on this earth, the prophet Elijah. You have these 2 great people, and then God looks at Jesus in the presence of these 2 great people and says, "This is my son, who I am well pleased. Listen to him." Now, listen to him in the Greek doesn't just simply mean listen to him like you would listen to music or listen to a podcast or something like that. Whatever Jesus says, I expect action, and I expect you to listen to him. What God is saying is Jesus is the authority.